Hello, my name is Chris Merritt, and I'm joined today by Chris Chevalier from Product Management. We're here to talk about Lumension Device Control, an integrated module in the Lumension Endpoint Management and Security Suite. Lumension Device Control provides the visibility, the control, and the encryption capabilities required by organizations today. Chris is going to demonstrate the product in a little bit, but I'd like to frame the discussion a bit first. Today, organizations face a great number of challenges. Among them, data loss or theft from negligent insiders accidentally losing a USB key, malicious insiders who come in and steal data, or even targeted attacks from outside hackers. Organizations are required to protect their data via encryption by regulation or statute. They also need to protect their valuable revenue-generating corporate IP. In addition, malware transmission via USB keys and other removable devices has become a big problem in recent years. And finally, there's a proliferation of devices being introduced into the corporate environment that consumers bring in to make their jobs easier. Things like iPads, iPods, smartphones, things like this. All of this leads to the need for an increased endpoint security capabilities. However, by adding more endpoint protection solutions to the endpoint, we're increasing the complexity of the endpoint and the management. Lumension Device Control is now a module in the Lumension Endpoint Management and Security Suite, which consolidates endpoint operations, security, compliance, and IT risk management workflows for an enhanced visibility and control of your endpoints. It provides a single agent, single console architecture to reduce complexity and total cost of ownership, provides end-to-end visibility of what is going on your endpoints, while improving productivity and enhancing security. Using the Lumension Device Control, you can mitigate the risks you're facing today by enforcing data and media access policies that don't impede your business productivity, by enforcing data encryption policies for removable storage devices like USB keys and media like CDs and DVDs, to protect the valuable data that might be transferred off the endpoints, and to monitor and manage and report what's going on your endpoints. Lumension Device Control allows you to control a great number of devices ranging from USB keys, external hard drives, CDs, DVDs, and so on and so forth. You can control the ports that users use to access those devices, USB, FireWire, Bluetooth, PCMCIA, and so forth. You can also control when users connect to the endpoints and how, what data they can download, controlling the time of day, the time of week, online and offline users. You can enforce your encryption policies depending on the devices being used and the amount of data that you are going to allow them to take off the endpoints. All in all, Lumension Device Control, as integrated in the Lumension Endpoint Management and Security Suite, provides the in-depth security needed to protect your endpoints.
So let's take a look at the device control solution in the Lumension Endpoint Management and Security Suite. This is the console for the Endpoint Management and Security Suite. This dashboard contains several widgets from the different solutions. All of our solutions are delivered through this platform. So device control is delivered through this, application control, antivirus, patch and remediation, all follow this common workflow, this shared workflow of discover, review, manage, and report. And as the different solutions are added to the console, those menu options just start to appear, and widgets for those solutions will be available. All that functionality will be added. And if I take a look at my Manage Endpoints page here, this lists for me the endpoints which are being managed by this server, and you'll see here the various solutions which can be added to each endpoint. So adding device control to a particular endpoint is as simple as selecting that endpoint, opening the Manage Modules dialog, and I can add whichever modules I want to that endpoint. And if I were to click OK here, then the agent on that endpoint would be extended to include those capabilities. If I want to get device control or an agent on a machine which is not being managed yet by the server, there is an agent management job wizard here, which I can walk through, and that will allow me to schedule this, and I can specify by IP address, IP range, network neighborhood, an Active Directory a group or something like that, and set this up. And then I can identify here in the agent management job which modules I want. So if I wanted to apply just device control to an endpoint, I could specify that at this time. So if I were to complete this job, it would go out, install an agent with device control on that endpoint, and that would kind of start the device control process for me of being able to gain some visibility into what's happening on the endpoints. So the first stage of what we want to do with device control is the discover phase, or the discover step in the process. And that is to get these agents out on the endpoints and start collecting information about what's really happening out on the endpoint. Once the agent is there, the system will begin to collect events that happen out there related to devices, such as when a device is connected, when people copy information back and forth, and we can look at those in the review device event logs step here. Now, what we do is we query the database for particular types of events, and if you look at the various types of events here, we can look at CDs and DVDs people are using, who's been denied device access, and we're not quite there yet, but I can look at devices that are connected, files that have been transferred onto my endpoints, files that have been transferred off of my endpoints, all type of information. And I can set that up here, and I can filter that to a particular time frame. And then I can also drill down into different groups, specific endpoints that I want to look at, or even specific users. And I can just pick whichever specific endpoint or group of endpoints I want to look at, and I can run that query. So if I take a look at, for example, a query which has been run for devices which are connected, then I'll be able to see a list of all the devices that were attached and who attached those, what type of device it was, what the model of that particular device is. And this starts to give me an idea of what's really being connected to the endpoints within my organization. So once I see all of these devices which are attached, now I need to start making decisions about what's legitimate business use, and what do I want to allow, what do I want to manage, and what do I want to block. Now with device control, we really just need to concern ourselves with what do we want to allow, what do we want to manage, control access to. Things which are not allowed, which we want to block, we won't have to worry about those, because we're going to switch over to a sort of device whitelist paradigm, if you will, where we will only give permissions for certain things. Anything which doesn't have permission won't be allowed to be used. So what I could do is I can take a device here out of this, for example, this smart card reader, and this is a device which I want to manage. My users need to be able to use this model of smart card reader. I'm going to add this to the device library. Now, what we're doing here is we're moving really from the discover phase into the define phase, where we're starting to define the devices that we want to manage, and we'll start to, the second part of the define phase will be where we want to start defining policies that govern the usage of these devices. So I want to add this model into my device library, and I want to add it into a collection called smart card readers. So that's going to add that into that collection. Now let me show you what that means. We're going to move over to the device library from the event logs. Here in the device library is where we manage and organize all of the devices which we want to control permissions for. So you'll see the different device types here on the left, and within each one of these device types, we can create individual collections of devices. So if I wanted to look, I've created a collection here called approved modems, and I have these two modems which I want to manage. Here under removable storage devices, I'll have external hard drives that I want to approve, flash drives, things like that. Under BlackBerry, maybe I've got a collection that's the executive BlackBerries that I want to manage differently than the 8020s that everybody has. So, and if I look under smart card readers, here's a collection called smart card readers, and it's got the model in it, which we just added from the device library. So the initial part of the define phase is basically to define the devices which I want to manage. Once I've got those organized according to the way I want to apply policy to them, I can, from right here, I can create a policy, and I can create that policy for the entire device class. In this case, it would be all smart card readers. Or I could, in a case where I've got multiple collections under a class, I can create a collection policy, and that will apply to a specific collection. So let's take the approved external hard drives, for example. Here's some hard drives, and let's create a policy for this collection. These are hard drives approved for use, let's say, and we can see that the collection of approved external hard drives is already included in this policy. If I wanted to, I could add additional collections from the library into this policy, or create a new collection from here. So we're creating a policy for this particular collection, and in this policy I want to specify permission settings, which means I want to control whether we can users can read or write or encrypt those particular devices. And I've got a couple other options here. I could set up shadow settings, in which case I would be keeping a copy of the file name or a copy of the full content of the file of files which get transferred on and off of the devices, between the devices and the endpoints. The other thing I could do is set up a daily copy limit. If I want to limit the amount of data that this particular user machine that I assign this policy to can copy off of their machine, then I can just set this up and enter a value here, and that's going to prevent them from transferring a lot of data at once out of the organization. I can also specify when this policy is going to take effect. By default, it would always be in effect. I can also decide that I want to set up one policy for when they're online connected to the corporate server, and I want to set up a different policy for when they're not connected to the corporate server. Maybe I want to do something more restrictive there. I can also set up scheduled permissions. So if this were a permission for let's say printers, or maybe these hard drives should only be used during business hours, I could set this up during business hours for Monday through Friday. Or in some cases you need to grant temporary permission. Let's say you've got somebody in a conference room, you've got a contractor in, and he wants to, or a salesman, and he wants to show a presentation, and he needs access to the USB port in the computer in the conference room. You can grant temporary permissions, for the next half hour or so, or hour, and you don't have to remember to come in and revoke those. So I'll leave this set at always, but there are a lot of options for controlling when people have access. So for these particular hard drives, I'm going to go ahead and allow read and write access to these hard drives. These ones are permitted, and if I wanted to, I could narrow that down by bus connection type. So if a external hard drive, let's say, has multiple bus connection types, I could apply one set of permissions. Let's say I could block permissions to the SCSI connector or the FireWire connector, and only allow to the USB connector to that drive. And then I could also set up different encryption policies here. So if I wanted to give them the right to encrypt the policy or encrypt the device, I could allow them to encrypt that hard drive here. And in fact, what I could do is set it up so that they could only encrypt the drive when it's unencrypted, and then I could give them full read-write permissions when the drive is encrypted, and that way they wouldn't be able to use an external hard drive unless it was encrypted. So I'll give read-write, I'll leave the option for them to encrypt that here. And again, similar to the device log query, the event log query that we were looking at, the platform provides us with these automatic system groups where we can assign these policies. So by Active Directory, by virtual machine technology, by IP collection. So if my network's organized and I want to apply a policy in that manner, I can do that. I can apply policy based on OS, or I could create custom groups of endpoints so that I can apply policies just in the manner I want to. So if I want to put one office in a particular group or one department in a particular group, I can do that through the creation of custom groups. And again, we can select individual endpoints or users as well. And so here I'll just add one particular endpoint for this and click Finish. This policy was created. And if we want to take a look at all of our policies, we would go to the Manage Device Control Policy page, and this will show me all of the device control policies that I have created, so by device class. There is a device control global policy, which is here by default, and if we look at that, it basically has two settings. There's an audit mode and a policy enforcement mode. Now initially this will be an audit mode, means that we're not blocking anything when we set up these policies, and you saw that dialog that I got. I can create all my policies right here and I won't block anything yet until I go edit this global policy and flip it over to policy enforcement mode. Then all of these policies will start to take effect. But we want to, before we do that, we want to make sure we're done discovering the devices that we want to manage. We want to define our policies, and we actually want to come back to the device event logs and look at the connected devices and make sure that we have all of the devices accounted for that we want to manage and allow access to. And what you could do, for example, is create a log query which shows devices connected, and then go through that list and make sure that those are all in your library, have policies applied to them, and you're managing them properly. So once you're comfortable with your organization in the device library, you've got all your devices added that you want to manage, you've got them in the appropriate collections. I've created policies either up at the class level or down within the collection level. Then let's go ahead and move to the next phase, which is the enforcement phase. And as I said, what we're going to do is we're going to select this global policy. I'm going to edit it, and I'm going to move from audit mode to policy enforcement mode, and click OK and answer the "Are you sure?" box. And now all of these policies will start to be enforced. So the global policy is in enforcement mode. It's going to deny every device that's connected, with the exception of anything which is allowed by policy. So now we've put our organization into enforcement mode. Our policies are being enforced. What we want to do is, again, go back to the device event logs, and we want to look at devices which are being denied. So if we look at denied device access, this will give us a list of users, endpoints, time and date, device type, every time a user connected to a device and was denied access to it. So we want to watch this closely when we first move over to the enforcement phase, because we want to make sure that our policies are accounting for everything which is legitimate business use or should be allowed. And once we're comfortable with that, once we've watched the denied device access, then from then on we've sort of entered the ongoing management phase, where we just want to keep an eye on the event logs. There are widgets here on the dashboard which show us by class the number of devices which were connected to endpoints in our organization. There's another widget that's available that would show you which users have been blocked access the most, and you would just review that information and go ahead and adjust your policies as necessary to account for business use.
Thanks, Chris, for that in-depth look at the Lumension Device Control module. For all our viewers out there, I encourage you to learn more about Lumension Device Control on our website, where you can get a free one-on-one demonstration of Lumension Device Control, download an evaluation copy, or get a free device scanner utility to find out what's really going on your endpoints. Thank you.